Throughout the years, Planet Coaster has greatly expanded the roster of scenery pieces its players can utilize. Many DLCs and free updates have vastly increased the artistic capabilities of the game. But despite all this, there's one thing I'd like to call attention to. It's not the pieces that enable or constrain your creative expression. And to illustrate this notion, I've selected what I think to be the most primal, raw and pioneering piece of Planet Coaster, the wooden plank, and specifically the 2-meter version. And today I'm gonna try to build a house using exclusively this piece. So how's that for a very dramatic intro? Basically, this video doesn't entirely come out of the left field, I have to say. You might have noticed that I didn't release an April Fool's video this year, and I usually cannot contain myself when it's April Fool's, and I always want to put some weird, stupid idea up. This year, though, my idea was to build an entire building out of wooden planks, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish it ahead of time. So really all I had was about a 45 minutes gameplay section where I was trying to make this work, and that's what you're currently looking at, but this is just a really small part of the video. The rest is something that I recorded today when I got back to the idea. And the reason that I got back to the idea is partly thanks to Rudi, my dear old friend Rudi Rankamel. You guys probably all know him by now. He sent me a message with one of his new wacky ideas to make a video series which is kind of an ode to some of the original pieces in Planet Coaster. This is becoming quite an old game. It's upwards of 2 years old now, and he remembered the time before all of the DLCs and free updates when we were all trying to break this game, which had very few pieces at the time, by arranging them in such a way and using chimneys as pillars and putting windows upside down to try and make all kinds of new things. And he wanted to make an ode to some of these original older pieces which don't see as much usage nowadays anymore, but really show just how much flexibility this game has and just how much you can really do with this game. At times it's pretty much a 3D modeling program, and I'm pretty sure the devs are even making some conscious decisions not to go too far with this, because things are already becoming pretty ridiculous as it is. And I figured it would be a good time to revive this old video because it pretty much exactly fits what Rudi was thinking of. I don't know if he'll release any more videos on this. I just shortly sent him an update that I'd be releasing this video sometime soon, but I'm not sure how likely it is that he'll make any videos on his side. Although I do remember having some conversations about certain pieces that could be used for this kind of idea, but for now I'm just sticking to wooden planks. I'm not really sure what else I am really going to do with this in the future. I thought it was also just a really fun exercise because not only does it show off how flexible Planet Coaster is and how many of these old pieces that aren't even from any of the DLCs or even from the free updates can do so much, but it also really shows, well, how much creativity you need. I guess it's a nice artistic exercise to try and make something out of just a single piece, because especially with the recent updates I've been doing less and less of the crazy weird placements of pieces, trying to make them work in ridiculous ways, which always was kind of a fun puzzle to do back in the day. So this is just a fun exercise that feels a bit more like some of my earlier playthroughs, at least for me. So to actually update you on what I'm building, you can probably tell from the thumbnail what this is going to look like. I decided to go for an Alpine style, kind of Swiss chalet style, very much Jägerhorn-ish building, just because that fits the texture of this wooden plank piece the most, I think, because these buildings are mostly wooden, so I do think it's a very practical idea to make a mostly wooden building. That said, I am trying to imitate some other things with this piece. So I'm trying to go for some stucco walls with the white pieces. Over here I'm adding some cornerstones, sort of. We'll see how that works when the final product is in place. And also, of course, there's the roof, which I haven't really talked much about, which I haven't said anything about actually. but is one of the most interesting pieces because it was quite difficult to make the roof work. I actually did this for some of my earlier series, including Neckar Park, where I made roofs out of door pieces. But when you make a roof out of pieces which are much larger than actual roof tiles and you're trying to make them look like roof tiles, there are all kinds of parts which you need to hide. So for this roof I had to slightly incline all of the wooden planks and overlap them in a sort of weaving pattern to make them look like single wooden shingles, which the texture works alright for sure, but the shape is quite hard for things like this. And very similarly, these cornerstones had to also be inclined slightly, so I had to just get rid of the angle snap and very slightly rotate them, kind of sink them into the wall to get the size and shape that I was looking for. But altogether, I think it works out quite well. And then the rest of the details are, of course, mostly wooden, so that's a bit easier. There's lots of timber work going on, which are just the wooden planks. Nothing changed there. And then some details. But really, aside from the windows also, which I decided to use black blanks for, I couldn't come up with anything better. I think a bluish color wouldn't work very well for the texture, so I'm trying to hide these windows as much as I can, but I'll add more detail to that later to make them look a bit more realistic. But yeah, aside from that, the rest is all just wooden planks. This railing was also quite interesting, because as I'm going for a kind of southern Germany, Switzerland, Tyrolean kind of building, I want to have one of these typical, balconies that go around the building, which overhang quite a bit, just because that very much carries the look of this kind of architecture. But these planks are kind of big, even though I took the smallest plank piece, basically for flexibility reasons, because making an entire building out of the 4-meter plank would be even more difficult. But still, you don't want to have a balustrade that's 2 meters tall. So I ended up going for that sort of cross design to make sure that I have a railing which is about 1 meter tall, which I think is very fair for a balcony. There's lots of other areas where I had to hide parts of planks inside the building to make it look a bit better. Like for instance, those details on the overhanging top floor of the building, and also the window details which I just added. I added some lighter wood on the window frames, just to make them look a little bit more like windows and hide that weird black texture, which doesn't look that well for a window, but it's just about the best thing that I could come up with. Now, adding to this part of the building, we basically have the main and the biggest part of the building in place, and now I'm going for a smaller side in a different direction. I always really like these kinds of L-shaped compositions of buildings where you've got one sort of main mass and then a smaller one to the side, and then you can just go detail from there, because it's pretty much a formula that always works. At least I always really like it. You do always very much need a strategy where you try to figure out what your main mass of the building is going to be. I think I always get very confused by buildings which are very heavy on one side and then very small on another side. I don't know, it's a certain composition idea that you want to make sure that you want to have the focus of the building in one place, be it very symmetrical in the middle with some kind of dome, or a building has a center of gravity in a sense, I guess. It's hard to explain it. Giving a building a sense of balance can be really difficult, and for me, having a big mass pointing forwards with most of the attention and detail put there, with a smaller one to the side pointing in an opposite direction, works quite well, and I just really like this kind of composition, especially from the one angle which I'll mostly be showing the building off from, because I have to be honest, that's just the best looking angle for this building. But yeah, that's just the overall idea behind this building. It's very simple. I didn't want to go too out there with the overall design of this building. It's really just in the details that I'm trying to be creative here and make all kinds of details out of just a wooden plank piece. So here we have the wing of the building with a slightly different roof. this time it doesn't have that little hipped top. And also we have a smaller, less inclined roof on the side as an overhang to make some kind of nice little area there. I'm not entirely sure what to do with it, but it just feels right there. And I'm just copying over a lot of the details to this side of the building as well. Also, and this is something that I always like to do, the top floors of the buildings, or the top floor of the building will be wooden, and then the bottom floors will be with stone details. But this goes for any height of any particular part of the building. So because this part is one floor lower, the part where it starts to become wood is also one floor lower. So we just have one floor with the stone cornerstones. That's a very pleonasmy sentence. And with the main section, we have 2 floors with the stone cornerstones. That probably sounds like I'm explaining the obvious here, but yeah, it's just something that I thought is worth pointing out. It's something that I like doing a lot, and I don't think I've ever really called any attention to it, so might as well here. Also, I forgot to do this for some time of the time lapse, but I thought it was funny to actually keep my inventory tab open with just that wooden plank showing. I think in hindsight on the time lapse it looks pretty funny, even if it's just such a stupid minor detail. I'll say though, if there's one advantage to making an entire building out of just one piece, it's that you never have to search for pieces, and you never have to wait for the scenery tab to load new pieces or anything. Whenever you want to start building something, you just grab one of the planks, or you select the plank in the menu down there and start building. So you can focus 100% on building, no matter how annoying it might be to make things out of just a wooden plank. And as you might be able to notice, I'm mostly actually copying things that I've already built, because for every detail that I'm adding, I really need to make it first. So I need to make a window first out of the planks, or make a balcony first, and then from that point onward I'm just copying them over for any new parts of the building. Now, most of the structure of the building is actually already in place here, so I decided to get to some of the details. Firstly, this flower planter, I guess these would be planters, because these alpine buildings tend to have a lot of flowers on their sides. I do have to say I'll cheat a tiny bit, because even though everything on the building that's structural will be these wooden planks, I do want to add some details, mostly foliage, that aren't planks, just to add these flowers on the balconies and stuff, which I hope you'll forgive me for. It's kinda like cheating, I guess, because it means that the building isn't 100% wooden planks, but really it's nothing structural or attached to the building that will be non-planks. So anything that is permanent on the building is going to be planks, or really anything that is part of the structure of the actual building is going to be planks, and then all of the other stuff is really just added in hindsight. Now, I'm also adding a little tower. I decided that I wanted to add a small spire because I like spires, but I wasn't too sure where to place it actually. I was thinking of the lower area first, but that felt kind of unbalanced, so I'll figure out a place for it later. But yeah, it's just a very small spire because I can't do too much with this thing, because again, I'm limited to planks, which means that I can't go all out on the shape, especially because, well, making a tall and thin spire out of these planks, you would quickly start to see where the planks start falling apart and moving into each other in weird ways. So it had to be kind of a small stump of a spire, just to make sure that it maintains a clean look and we don't get planks sticking out in weird places. So yeah, it's not the most visually interesting addition to the building, but I think it works out quite well. And I eventually figured out this place on the side of the main part of the building here, where to me it felt like it was balanced enough and really actually kind of sitting on the center of gravity of the building. And then also, because this part of the building felt a bit empty, I'm adding a small dormer, which is really simple, but just adds a bit of detail to the roof, Also because there's not a lot that I can add to these roofs, because most details you can't really make out of wooden planks. I did decide to make a chimney though. In fact, I made 2 chimneys with wooden planks for the top part, and then also wooden planks for the lower part, where I made the lower part the color of the walls to try and get the stone chimney with a smaller iron top part look, which I think works out alright. In this case, I'm still using Shy Guy's Alpine Village from Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 as a guideline for what these pieces are looking like, which is something which now is over 10 years old, I think, and from a really old game, but it's still very much relevant, and it's still very much, for me, a reference for what kind of pieces you can add to this kind of building in this kind of theme. So yeah, I'm finally adding the flowers into their respective flower thingies. Yeah, I guess these are planters. No, they're window boxes, I think. Anyway, whatever their official name is that I lost, you know, these things that allow flowers to be put on the sides of buildings, which looks absolutely awesome. And yeah, I'm just quickly rotating and moving some of these flowers as well, just to make sure that they're not all in the same position, so that they don't look too unnatural. And I'm also using some smaller flowers for the flower beds on the lower floors, just because there's a little bit less space there, but also because I don't want to completely make the railings invisible, because I thought the X-shaped railings actually look quite cool. I really kind of like the look of them. They're a bit unusual, and you can definitely tell that I was trying to figure out a way to make this work with wooden planks, but I do think it fits the look of the building. And here I'm really done at this point with the building itself, and I'm just adding some loose items around the building. So really nothing permanent, just some flower baskets and planters and barrels and crates and stuff like that. So just loosely scattered stuff and some foliage. But I think it helps, you know, give a context to where this building would be, and it helps make the building look a lot better. So for that reason, I'm also going to build a small forest around the building, just to give you a bit more of a realistic setting for the building. And I'm keeping all of this very simple. I'm just building one small section of a forest with some pine trees and some palm trees on the bottom as ferns, actually, which I think looks alright, and some other small shrubs as overall greenery. So really simple here, but I think it helps make the setting for this building quite well. And then this open space in front of the building to kind of be the area where you're looking toward the building, and to help me actually get some good camera angles to shoot this building from. So yeah, that's it for this time-lapse. I'm quite happy with the end results. I hope you guys enjoyed this time-lapse, but I'll let the cinematic footage speak for itself. See you guys hopefully on some other more normal video. I swear I'll try to finish some of my other series. I'll try not to keep being distracted by other random ideas, but I really wanted to finish this one because I thought it was really fun and something I hadn't seen before. Bye guys!